got a bunch of tickets too.
Alright guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at this bell ringer question. Question is, why do increases or decreases in the quantity demanded not shift or change the position of a demand curve? Remember, last thing we talked about in our notes from last time, we talked about what did we talk about? Look back in your notes. Look what we covered. Okay. So keep going. It's the last thing that we talked about.
Charge and quantity.
What's that?
Charge and quantity.
So we talked about a change in the quantity demanded. That's the last thing that we talked about. And what did we say about a change in the quantity demanded? What did you guys write down in your notes about change in quantity demanded? What's that? So the change in quantity demanded refers to a change in how much of a good or service that an individual demands because of a change in price. And how is this represented on the demand curve? That should be in your notes too. It represents a new point on what? On the demand curve. So an increase or decrease in the quantity demanded does not shift or change the demand curve, because when we're changing our quantity demanded, it's because the price is changing, and therefore we're just moving to a new point on the demand curve. So increases or decreases in the quantity demanded do not shift or change the demand curve, because that is a result of a change in price or a change in quantity demanded, and therefore we're just moving to a new point on the curve. Does that make sense to everyone?
Can you repeat the explanation?
Absolutely. So because of the change in price, we're changing how much we demand at those different prices. So if the price moves down from $3 to $2.50, we're going to end up demanding more.
Yeah.
So instead of moving the whole curve, we're just going to move to a new point on that curve representing that change in price.
Okay, so when it doesn't move, the only thing that's changing is the number demanded, but not the price.
No, the price is changing, and because of that change in price, it's also changing our quantity demand.
Okay, so then, but it doesn't shift or change the position.
It doesn't move the position of the curve one way or another. We're just moving to a different point on that same curve.
Because both are changing
Right.
the demand and the price?
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense? All right, very good.
Oh, there you go.
So go ahead and take out your notes now. We're going to talk about something different today. Last week we left off talking about a change in the quantity demanded, and you guys talked about how that was just moving to a different point along the same demand curve because of a change in price. Now we're going to talk about a change in demand in general. And these changes in demand are caused by changes within the marketplace. When we talk about change in demand, price is not changing. The prices are remaining the same, but there are a number of other factors that are taking place within the marketplace that are causing a change in demand. So these changes prompt people to buy different amounts of goods and services at every price. This is also referred to as a shift or a change in demand. So when we talk about change in quantity demanded, again, we're just moving to a new point on the curve. When we talk about change in demand, now we're talking about moving that demand curve one way or another based on those changes within the marketplace. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk about the 6 different factors that cause a change in demand. There are 6 different factors. So a change in demand, we're talking about moving the entire demand curve one way or another because of the different factors or the different changes in the marketplace. Now in the next slides, I'm going to show you a couple examples of the demand curves itself and the changes. Give you guys another second to finish writing this down. So here's an example of a demand curve that demonstrates this change in demand. This red curve that we have here, this is our original demand curve. Something has happened in the marketplace, something's taken place that has caused our demand curve to move to the left, to shift to the left. And now instead of demanding certain amounts of goods at these different prices, so 5, 10, 15, 20, now we're going to demand less goods and services at those same prices. So, for instance here, instead of demanding 8 DVDs at $5, now because of something that's taken place, now we're only going to be able to demand 6 DVDs at the same price. So, there's been something that's happened that's caused our demand to decrease at every price. And again, we're just moving this demand curve. We're not changing the prices. Our price points are still the same, but we're shifting, we're changing how much we demand at these different prices. And here's one that represents an increase in demand. So here we have our original demand curve, this red curve here. And now instead of demanding 8 DVDs at $5, now something's happened and now we can afford 10 DVDs at that price. Something's taken place. We've, how many of you guys work? Show of hands, how many of you guys work? Maybe you got a raise. Maybe now you're making more money. And now because you're making more money, now you can afford to buy more at those different prices. So instead of buying 6 DVDs at $10, now you can buy 8 DVDs at $10. Does that make sense to everyone? So based on these different factors in the marketplace, it causes our demand curve to either shift to the left or shift to the left or shift to the right. Does that make sense? Yes? No? All right. So now I mentioned earlier there are 6 different factors that cause a shift or a change in demand. The first factor being income, which is the example that I just used. And when we talk about income, what we're referring to is a person's ability to buy goods changes as his or her income changes. So what do we mean by that? If you have a job and you're doing really good, you got a raise, are you going to be able to demand more or less because you got that raise? You're receiving more income. What's that? You're going to be able to demand more, right? You're now earning more money, your income is higher, therefore you're going to be able to demand more at every price. But let's say you messed up really bad at work and they cut back your hours or they just let you go altogether. What's going to happen then? You're going to be broke, okay? What's going to happen to your demand for certain goods and services then? It's going to be less. Your demand is going to be less because your income has dropped significantly. So our income also influences the types of goods that people demand. Our income also influences the types of goods that people demand. So we have normal goods and we have something called inferior goods. We have normal goods and inferior goods. So in normal goods are products that are demanded more when your income tends to be higher, when your income is on the rise or increasing. And inferior goods are those particular products that you tend to demand more of when your income is decreasing or your income is dropping for whatever reason. So think about it this way. Would Aquafina, Dasani, Zephyr Hills, those are all different brands of water, right? Would those be considered normal goods or inferior goods? What's that? Why would they be inferior? Okay. But wouldn't they be normal goods for that reason? They'd be normal goods, right? Because those are name brand products. And because of that, if your income is rising, if you have more money, you'll be more likely to buy those products. Unlike me, I'm a broke college student. And because of that, I have to buy the Great Value water from Walmart. I can't go and buy the 24-pack of Dasani or the 24-pack of Zephyr Hills. I have to buy the discounted version of the product. So those are the differences between normal goods and inferior goods. Normal goods are those goods that are more name brand, and inferior goods are the more discounted type brands, or goods and services. Are there any questions on this factor of income and how that relates to change in demand? Question?
Inferior is just going to be the opposite, so normal goods would be, okay, so normal would be going up and then inferior is going down.
Right, so inferior, normal goods are those like higher end type goods, and inferior goods are the discounted type brands.
Or like generic?
Yeah, generic type products, yes.
So you're demanding less when your income rises for inferior goods?
Yes. So if your income goes up, are you going to want to buy more name brand stuff, or are you going to want to keep buying the discounted stuff? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The second factor that we're going to talk about is market size. Market size. What this refers to is as the number of consumers in a place or situation changes, the demand changes. So think about it this way. Florida is the tourist capital of the world, right? Yeah. Get people from all over the world come to Florida. No. Florida is one of the tourist capital, like it's one of the huge tourist places on the face of the earth. So, think about it this way. Between the months of June and late August, what tends to happen? Summer, right? Who comes here during the summer? You got tourists, you got snowbirds, people on vacation, people that, school's out, they want to go to Disney World, they want to go to Universal, they want to go to the beach. So during those months, what happens to the market size? It increases. There's more people, right? So what happens to demand then? If the population's growing, what's happening to the demand for different goods and services? It increases, right? So as the market size grows, as the population continues to grow, the demand for goods and services also grows. So a rise in population leads to increased demand. Now, what happens from September to, say, right before Thanksgiving? What happens to the population then in Florida? What's that? It decreases, right? Everyone's going home. They're getting ready for school to start. So the population is decreasing. The market size is shrinking. And because of that, the demand is also decreasing. So as the market size continues to decline, so does demand. Yes?
You know how you said the law of demand is like when the demand is great, the prices are low or something like that?
Right, that was the law of demand, yes.
Yeah. Then how come like when you go to Disney World, the demand, even though the demands are high, the prices are still expensive?
Because they can force you to buy that.
Yeah.
Especially with little kids.
Yeah. They know that they can get you to pay it. It's, it's market forces at work. It's supply and demand. As we continue throughout this unit, that'll make more and more sense to you guys. But, so here's the deal. If the market size is growing, let's say it's the beginning of the summer, what's going to happen to the demand curve? Are we going to move to the left or are we going to move to the right? What's that? I got a bunch of answers. Somebody raise their hand. It's going to move to the right. Why is that? Alright, because our quantity demanded is going to increase. We're going to be demanding more. And what happens when everyone goes back home for the fall? School starts, everything else. What's going to happen to the demand curve then? It's going to move back to the left, right? The quantity demanded is going to decrease. Our demand overall is going to decrease. So the demand curve is going to shift or change to the left. The third factor that we're going to talk about are consumer tastes. Consumer tastes. What this refers to is consumer tastes tend to change. Different products, different goods and services tend to gain and lose popularity. So different products tend to gain and lose popularity. What was the popular phone that was out 6 years ago? 5, 6 years ago?
Oh, the flip Motorola.
The flip Motorola phone, the Razor, right? That's what it's called. That was a popular phone 5 or 6 years ago. The demand for that phone was through the roof. So 5 or 6 years ago, what do you think was happening to demand for that phone? It was increasing. It was going through the roof, right? Which way would the demand curve be moving? To the right. So the demand curve would be moving to the right because that was the most popular phone on the market. We were willing to pay, or we were willing to buy more and more of that product at every price. What about today? What about that same Razor phone today? It's that Motorola flip phone. Yeah. But what do you guys think is happening to the demand for that same phone today? There is no demand for that phone.
Yeah.
Some people can't even remember what it looks like, what it's called. People don't even want to think about it.
I still have mine.
I still have mine too. I don't use it, but I still have it. But anyways, consumer taste change, products gain and lose popularity. So at the height of the popularity for that phone, the demand curve was moving or changing towards the right. We were willing to buy more and more at the same prices, whereas versus today, it's lost a significant amount of its popularity. And now what's happening to the demand curve for that phone today? It's all the way to the left. The demand curve is moving or changing all the way to the left because that product's lost popularity and we don't want to buy, or we don't want to purchase as many at those different prices. So the demand curve has moved to the left. The fourth factor that we're going to talk about is known as consumer expectations. Consumer expectations. And what this refers to is as expectations about the future price of items affect demand. So think about it this way. What's a popular shopping holiday that's coming up in the next couple months? Black Friday, right? We got Christmas shopping season, we got Black Friday. So what typically goes on sale on Black Friday?
Electronics.
Everything, electronics. So we got video game systems, those go on sale, right? Appliances, televisions. What else goes on sale? Shoes, those go on sale. So you guys are expecting those things to go on sale on Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So are you guys gonna buy those now if you know that they're gonna be on sale in a month and a half? No. You're not gonna buy it now. You're gonna wait till Black Friday and then you're gonna go buy it for 25, 50, 75% off. So an expected rise or fall in price can cause people to buy now or wait. So you guys said because Black Friday is coming up, you guys are gonna wait until Black Friday to go shop for all that stuff. What's gonna happen to the demand for those products right now? The demand is gonna drop, right? And what's gonna happen on the demand curve? How's that gonna be represented on there? It's gonna move to the left. Drop in demand or a change in demand, a decrease would be represented by a change to the left on the demand curve. Think about it this way. Hypothetically, gas is going to skyrocket again. Next week, gas prices are going to be $3.50, $4 a gallon. But gas today is $2.35. What's going to happen to the demand for gas right now? Next week, remember, next week gas is expected to be $3.50 a gallon. But right now it's $2.35. The demand for gas is going to what right now? It's going to go up, right? It's just a hypothetical. Don't worry about it.
I don't know when you say something like this real or everybody got
But if the price of gas is expected to skyrocket next week, the demand for that product right now is going to go through the roof. People are going to demand more and more, and the demand curve is therefore going to shift to the right. You're going to demand more and more gas at every price right now versus next week when gas is expected to be super expensive. The fifth factor that we're going to talk about that causes a change in demand is substitutes. Substitutes. And what this refers to is products that are used in place of each other. So substitutes are products that are used in place of each other. And if the price of a substitute drops, people will buy it instead of the original item. So think about it this way. We had Powerade versus Gatorade. A lot of people would probably, if all things being equal, a lot of people would probably say they would drink Gatorade, right? But let's say the price of Powerade drops. Let's say the price of Gatorade is $3 a bottle, and a bottle of Powerade is $1.
I was still Gatorade. Instead of what?
So if the price of a substitute drops, people will buy it instead of the original item. So in theory, the idea here is if the price of Powerade drops and the price of Gatorade stays the same, you're going to be more likely to buy that substitute item instead of the original item, which was Gatorade. So you're going to be replacing that bottle of Gatorade with a bottle of Powerade because the price of that substitute item has dropped. Does this make sense to everyone? Yes. Give you guys just another second to finish writing this down. We got one more factor, and I got a couple practice questions for you guys to work on, so you guys can show that you really understand this. All right. The last factor that we're going to talk about are complements. This is the last factor that can cause a change in demand. So complements. These are goods that are used together. These are goods that are used together. What's that?
Like a phone, like you use T-Mobile and Apple together, so it's a complement?
Kind of. Yes. Yeah, that's the way it's spelled in the book, so I just went with how it's spelled in the book. So the idea here is if the price of one product changes, the demand for both changes in the same way. So think about it this way. We have hamburgers and hamburger buns. Right?
Yeah.
Say the price of hamburgers goes up. What's going to happen to the demand for hamburgers? The demand is going to go down, right? So the price goes up, our demand for hamburgers goes down. What about those hamburger buns? Hamburger buns. That's going to go down too. Because as the price for that first product increases, you're going to demand less of that. And because of that, you're also going to demand less of the hamburger buns. So if the price of the first product changes, the demand for both of those products change in the same way. So, and this can be true for anything, CDs and CD players. The price of CD players goes up. What's going to happen to the demand for CD players? The price goes up, the quantity demanded is going to go up. It's going to go down. And what's going to also happen to our demand for CDs? That's going to go down too. So those products, those goods that are used together, their demand increases or decreases together based on a price change in one of those products. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes? All right, very good. So if the price of one rises, the demand for both drop. So if the price of one of those products rises, the demand for both will drop. And that works just the opposite too. If the price of one drops, then the demand for both will increase. I swear to God, I agree.
So it's kind of like they go hand in hand, that's
Yeah.
basically what we're saying, okay.
Yeah, so they're goods that are used together, and because of that, a change in the price or change in the demand for one will change in the same way for the other. Alright, here's a couple scenarios for you guys to work on, a couple practice situations. You guys are going to create a demand schedule and a demand curve for DVDs.
Partner.
Not using my numbers that we used in the other examples, using your own numbers. So, hypothetically, the price of DVD players has dropped in recent days. On the same graph, you're going to draw a second demand curve. So you're not going to draw a different graph, you're going to be on the same graph. You're going to draw a second demand curve, illustrating what will happen to the demand for DVDs because of the drop in price of DVD players. And then you're going to identify which of the 6 factors that we talked about are causing this change in demand. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, you guys can just write this down in your notes. You guys don't have to write down the scenario. I know that's too long for you guys to write down. But just copy the demand curve, the demand schedule down in your notes. And then when you're done, raise your hand and we'll discuss it. If you guys have any questions, just raise your hand. I'll come around. into the demand for DVDs. You have an answer?
I don't know. Drop when the demand increase,
Okay.
so
So-
shift to the right.
The price of DVD players has dropped in recent days. So because of that drop in price, what's going to happen to the demand for DVD players?
Go up by more.
That's going to go up, right? And what do you think is going to happen to the demand for DVDs then?
They would go up too.
That would go up too. So that drop in price for DVD players is causing an increase in demand for DVD players. And because of that increase in demand for DVD players, now more DVDs are going to be demanded as well. So which of the 6 factors does this represent? Complements, right? They're two goods that are used together. So the demand curve is going to shift which way? Left or right? To the right, because we're increasing our demand. Our demand is increasing, and therefore our demand curve is going to shift to the right, and this would be an example of complements. That's the factor that's causing this change in demand, complements. Use that one. Here's another practice scenario for you guys. Guys, next time you come in tomorrow, we're gonna have you guys working on an activity that again relates to this idea of change in demand to get you guys more practice. You guys are gonna have to do more of this creating demand curves and demand schedules and illustrating which of the 6 factors that it's representing. So just know that tomorrow when you guys come in, we're gonna be working on an assignment or an activity in a photo that relates to this. Okay? And also remember that between Thursday and Friday, you guys will be presenting your projects on the different economic philosophers. So you need to get together with your group members between the rest of today, tomorrow. Make sure that you have that done because they need to be turned in. That way we can get them all uploaded when you guys walk in.
Do you need a printed copy?
A printed copy of the presentation?
Yeah.
No, we need it on the flash drive or something. Because you're gonna have to put it up here.
Yeah, but you just want a printed copy.
You can bring in a printed copy. But just know that you guys need to have a copy of your presentation.